Let's turn to Isaiah chapter 55 tonight. Isaiah 55. Isaiah chapter 55. We begin at verse 1. Ho, every one that thirsteth, come ye to the waters, and he that hath no money, come ye, buy and eat. Yea, come, buy wine and milk without money and without price. Wherefore do ye spend money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which satisfies not? Hearken diligently unto me, and eat ye that which is good, and let your soul delight itself in fatness. Incline your ear and come unto me, hear, and your soul shall live. And I will make an everlasting covenant with you, even the sure mercies of David. Behold, I have given him for a witness to the people, a leader and commander to the people. This chapter begins with an invitation. It says, every one that thirsteth, come to the waters. He that hath no money, come, buy, and eat. Yea, come buy wine and milk without money and without price. You know, we think about God's invitation, and God's invitation is just that way. He invites every one of us to drink freely of the waters of life. He invites us to draw upon those things that could be a blessing and a help to our soul, and to freely come to Him for everything that we need. He asks a couple of questions here. He says, why do you spend your money for that which is not bread? And why do you labor for that which satisfies not? He says, hearken unto me, and you can have that which is good. Your soul can delight itself in fatness. And you know, these days, I don't know, fatness might need to be changed to a different word. You say, why? Because we live in a country where fatness is not quite as wonderful of a term as it was back then. You see, back then, people did well to eat. And a person that you might say was fat was a person that was well blessed. A person that had plenty to eat. Well, today we live in a world, you might say, in this country where food is kind of pushed at us on every hand. And certainly we know that it's nice that we have good things and we have plenty to eat. But he was trying to help them to consider that, you know, you can go through life and you can spend your life and never find real satisfaction, real contentment, real happiness, because you have expended your labors and efforts upon the wrong things. So he says, incline your ear to me and hear, and your soul shall live, and I'll make an everlasting covenant with you, even the sure mercies of David. Behold, I have given him for a witness to the people, a leader and a commander to the people. We know he's talking about the coming of Jesus Christ here. He's talking about the blessing and the help that we can find in Jesus Christ. And you know, we live in a day when many people claim Jesus Christ. But the other side to that is we look around and we see that Many people are not happy. They do not have satisfaction. They are not content. And their life is not the life that they would like it to be. Now tonight, as we consider that, we would like to maybe try to help us picture why our life could be that way. And still we know about Jesus. As far as we have heard about Him, certainly we think about it, people might even have come to Him in some way and still find their life in that condition. And as we do, I kind of have in mind an illustration, and I hesitate. I know when we use personal examples, they can be inconvenient for our family. And our intent is not to hurt our family, but it's an example that I think most of them in particular can relate to. And certainly it maybe has its roots in the fact that we have been influenced by the waste not and want not generation. I certainly could look back to my own upbringing and childhood, and I can tell you an experience from grade school. In third grade, I believe it was, a teacher, looked around, and everybody, you know how kids are. This subject's over, shove the book in the desk and pull out the next one. Shove it and pull out the next one. It don't take long for that to turn into disarray. And so naturally the teacher said, clean out your desk. Well, being of either a lazy character or one that was going to be quite ingenious, I just gathered up everything that wasn't books and put it in the trash. That was the wrong choice. The teacher went and got it and says, there's a stack of good paper in here and you're going to find it. You will separate the used up from the good, and you will keep the good. Well, that trained me to waste not and want not. It certainly gave me the inspiration to use things carefully and not waste them. We live in a day when a lot of people recycle stuff and such as that. And I'm in agreement with that in the thought of I don't believe we ought to be wasteful. But anyway, the example I want to use to kind of help us see how you can spend your money for that which is not bread and labor for that which satisfies not is our refrigerator. We have a refrigerator that, one thing, we could say we're well blessed. It's always full. But that's got its own set of challenges. It's always full. But here's the picture I want us to see. That means if I want to put some good thing in there, something else has to come out. And so I remember one time cleaning it out, and we found in the back 5 jars of pickles. Now, we're not particularly pickle people. We inherited that. And part of the challenge here is, you can laugh about my refrigerator. Maybe yours look like it come from the store. It's empty and clean. But if so, I kind of wonder why you got one. We are socially involved, and so, we might have cookout and cook out 2 or 3, and pretty soon somebody brings pickles every time, and they don't take them home. Pretty soon I got a refrigerator full of pickles, and nobody in the house that particularly wants a pickle. But here's the thing about it. Till I finally says, if nobody's going to eat these pickles, they got to go. That meant if I wanted to make a Jell-O and put it in there was no place to put it. If you want to make a pudding and put it in there, there's no place to put it. If you needed to thaw a turkey so you could cook it, there's no place to put it. Now you can laugh about our refrigerator, But the question we would have, how many lives are just like our refrigerator? To put a good thing in, something has to come out. And the picture we want us to see is our lives can become so full of so many things that we finally look around and we find out we're laboring for that which satisfies not. My life's all taken up. The good thing I would like to put in it, there's no space for it there because it's filled up with other things. Now, you know, we can all laugh about how in a refrigerator stuff gets pushed to the back, and occasionally you find what you go, ooh, I found a science fair project. It's time for it to go. I don't know what I'm growing. But you know, at the same time, there are plenty of things in there that in a sense they're good things. I mean, there might be 5 different flavors of jelly and a dozen different kinds of salad dressing. You know, things that just kind of collect over time. Someone opened this one because they wanted this flavor today, but they haven't wanted it since. They're not bad things, but they're in the way of the good thing I would like to do now. I can't put that big bowl of pudding in there because there's no place for it to fit. All those jellies and salad dressings and other things are in there in the way. In our lives, we could look at it the same way. There are things that are there. They're not necessarily bad things, but they could stand in the way of me doing what I want to do right now. And sometimes we can admit we looked in there and just went, well, I guess I'll do that today because I don't know how I'm going to ever get it in here. I'll just have to pass on that. How about our own lives? Maybe we have intentions of doing a lot of things that would be good and profitable, but life's full of all that other stuff. Amen. And, you know, I think about in one place, the Apostle Paul wrote, and he says, you know, all things are lawful to me, but not everything is expedient. And his thought is, I got to sort through some things and say these things are profitable, these things are beneficial, and these things, it's not that they're unlawful or it's not that they're evil and wicked of themselves, but they're taking the place of the good thing that I would like to do with my life. And so we consider here, he says, how is it you labor for that which satisfies not? We can fall into a pattern where our life is full and busy, but it's full and busy with things that don't particularly bring true satisfaction. Now, another example we could give of that, I was reading a thing this week about a fellow, he decided he was going to shut down his electronics for 90 days. It was an interesting read. He decided, you know, and here's how I decided it. And this does kind of bring home the point. They were at a restaurant, him and a fellow from 2 states away and 3 or 4 other guys. And the ones from 2 states away, they'd come to see each other. And here was one with his phone playing Angry Birds and another one doing Words with Friends. And they were all sitting around the table punching on their little electronics. And he thought, boy, this is crazy. This guy came from 2 states or more away to see us. And this is what we're doing. Maybe they were doing a Facebook. And the Facebook says, hi, I'm at Joe's Pizza. And the other guy goes, hey, that's amazing. So am I. Of course, they're right across the table from each other. And yet, how many times our lives are full of things just like that? Well, this fella, he said, man, it was a challenge for starters. He called the cell phone company and said, just put my phone on hold. I'm not going to use it for 90 days. And, you know, he shut off the computers and actually found out what a landline was. You know, that's almost like going back to one of the phones with the little round things on them that people don't even hardly remember anymore. But you know, he says, man, it was amazing how much time I had that I didn't have before. He says, I didn't know what to do with myself at first because I wasn't used to having that kind of time. He says, I got on my bicycle and started riding over to people's houses to see them. And as the story went along, one of the interesting things is, I guess him and his girlfriend had fussed about electronics and they actually became friends again. The picture is his life changed pretty significantly because he looked and says, these are some things I'm going to take out for a while and I'm going to put something else in the place of them. Now, are we saying all those electronics are evil and wicked and bad? No. But we could ask the question, if you fill your life up with Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and you just keep expanding on all the various things that you can now be a part of, are you really interacting with people? Are you really involved in life in a way that satisfies? It can use up all of our available time, just like that stuff in my refrigerator. And if you're really out reaching out and touching people and it's good and beneficial, that's probably okay. But at the same time, we got to ask ourselves, what good thing could you have put in there in the place of that if it hadn't been in there? That's right. It's something for us to think about. We consider, if we wanted to put it in accounting terms, and people go, oh, that's not really the most exciting folks in the world, is accountants. But in accounting terms, they call that opportunity cost. It is the cost of the opportunity to do this when I chose to do this. So I've got to, as I look at my life, there are things I'm going to have to give up for other things. True. And here's what he's saying to them. You guys are going about your life in such a way, you're spending your money and it's all spent, but you don't have that real bread, and we could go on to say that real bread of life. You've got maybe food on your table and a roof over your head, but you don't have that which really feeds you. That's right. And he says, and you labor for that which satisfies not. There's a lot of people in this world that are working hard. Their life is full. They're getting up early and staying up late. And they still are finding no satisfaction. Why? Because they're just like my refrigerator. They're crammed full of stuff, and all the stuff by and of itself may be fine. But it's not the good thing that you want. I mean, sometimes it's nice just to be able to go, put something in there and make something new and good and interesting. Now, one of the things we tried to do to make use of some of that stuff, just a little aside on the refrigerator, we tried to come up with different ways to cook leftovers so they're not leftovers anymore. So you could get them out of there. You say, what do you mean? Well, as I recall, someone, when they saw it for the third or fourth time in the week, it was, Lord, thank you for this again. Well, if you take leftovers and you make them into something else, that you don't have to say again. It's new and different. It's interesting. But we need to see that our life can just be crammed full, just like the refrigerator can, of all things that are just there kind of marking time. They're absorbing the time in our life, but they're not giving us back the things that we desire. We could look around and consider the lives of other people. And one of the things we find is that a lot of people you read about, and maybe you look at your life and go, man, look at the things they accomplished. Somewhere along the way, they had to figure out what mattered. And everything else had to become secondary to that. An example we think of, we've been reading a little bit about John Wesley's life, and I think he carried it a little far, and that was a stage of his life where he was maybe very ritualistic and maybe legalistic about some of his approaches. But I remember reading about him deciding he was going to do away with intemperate sleep. Well, so he set the alarm first for 8, and then for 7, then for 6, and then for 5, and then for 4. And you go, well, I think you've reached the point that it's not intemperate anymore. But his whole idea was, I'm not going to spend my life sleeping in. I've got too much to do to spend all that time in bed. Now, there's a psalm, I believe it is, that says, you don't need to rise up early and stay up late. The Lord gives His beloved sleep. We don't want to get unbalanced with ideas, and I think in that portion of his life he maybe did somewhat. But I don't want to sleep till noon every day, then look around and go, I never can get anything done. Because, well, why? Well, my day's always half over before I get started. He had a point. And yet we know that, they tell us that without at least 6 or 8 hours of sleep at night, you're asking for health issues. I don't believe that's intemperate to take care of your body. But a person could just get sloppy about how they go about life and wonder why all the things that satisfy them never seem to happen. Well, it's because we're spending our time and our labor for that which don't satisfy, when really we need to expend it on that which does satisfy. If we go to Haggai, the first chapter, in Haggai chapter 1, we'll begin with verse 1. It says, In the 2nd year of Darius the king, in the 6th month, in the 1st day of the month, came the word of the Lord by Haggai the prophet unto Zerubbabel the son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and to Joshua the son of Josedek the high priest, saying, Thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, saying, This people say, The time is not come, the time that the Lord's house should be built. Then came the word of the Lord by Haggai the prophet, saying, Is it time for you, O ye, to dwell in your sealed houses, and this house lie waste? Now therefore, thus saith the Lord of hosts, Consider your ways. You've sown much, and bring in little. Ye eat, but ye have not enough. Ye drink, but ye are not filled with drink. Ye clothe you, but there is none warm. And he that earneth wages, earns wages to put it into a bag with holes. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, Consider your ways. Go up to the mountain, and bring wood, and build the house, and I will take pleasure in it, and I will be glorified, saith the Lord. You looked for much, and lo, it came to little. And when you brought it home, I did blow upon it. Why, saith the Lord? Because of mine house that is waste, and ye run every man unto his own house. Now this was written, it says, in the 2nd year of Darius the king, in the 6th month, in the 1st day of the month. And if we place it in history right, Daniel had begun praying initially. He prayed, and the people of Israel were, some of them, able to go back to Jerusalem. And they went back to build the temple. And they got started, and they encountered opposition. And for about 15 years, they just quit. They weren't building the temple. They had just quit. And so this was the word that God sent to the prophet. And he says, speak to these and say, thus speaks the Lord of hosts. People say it's not time. The time that the Lord's house should be built. The time hadn't come yet. It can't be done yet. There's a hindrance in the way. But you know, the interesting thing is, if you'd study all of this out, in the next book, I believe it's Zechariah, he also prophesied at this time, and his words to them was this: it's not by might, it's not by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord. And what his thought to them was, is, you know, we can sit here and wait for our enemies to change their mind and do all kinds of things so that somehow it'll get to be the right time. But his thought was, God says that we need to build the house, so we need to build the house. And God can take care of it. And God certainly did take care of it. The opposition didn't totally go away immediately, but the opposition went to the king of Babylon, to Darius, or whichever one it was, and said, these people are building this and they shouldn't be. And so he sent down and says, well, hold it. And then they sent back and says, well, Cyrus the king told us to build it. And he got the look and said, sure enough, he did. And he wrote a letter to the other people and says, get out of the way, they're building it. So they were able to do it. But here they sat. Somebody needed to wake up and go, it is time to do something. We can't just sit here forever. We can't just sit around and say, well, you know, we're doing all right. He says, is it time, O ye, to dwell in your sealed houses, and this house lie waste? What was the comparison he was making here? I believe they had started the temple, and they basically had a foundation. They had the floor, but there was no building. Well, they're sealed houses. What it's describing is not a house with just a roof over it, but it's describing a house with ornate fixtures in a kind of a mansion type house. And he says, is it time for you to dwell in a mansion? And the house of God is lying waste. He says, now consider your ways. You've sown much, you bring in little. You eat, but you don't have enough to eat. You drink, but you're not filled with drink. You clothe you, but you're not warm. And you earn wages into a bag with holes. Now, I don't know about putting my wages in a bag. I don't go back far enough to get paid that way. I do know what it's like to put change in my pocket and the pocket to be worn out and have holes in it. And you put it in and all of a sudden it's coming out down by your shoe. He's describing them earning wages to put in bags with holes. You know, interesting thing. Most of us, we pretty much live from payday to payday. Say, well, I'm putting back a little. Well, that's good. I hope you have money for the rainy day when the rainy day comes. But the point is, you're putting a lot into it, but you're not getting much out of it. He said, consider your ways. You're doing all these things to take care of yourself, but it's not working out too good. And he said, consider your ways. Go up to the mountain, bring wood, build this house. I will take pleasure in it. I will be glorified. And the thought is, and you will be satisfied. You'll be satisfied.
Amen.
But he said, you looked for much and it came to little. You brought it home. I did blow up on it. Why? Because of mine house it is waste, and you run every man unto his own house. Now this, among other things, is trying to help us see where real satisfaction is at. The real satisfaction is at accomplishing what God wants accomplished in your life. And certainly if we're going to see accomplished in our life what God wants accomplished, there's some things we're going to have to look at them and go, you know what? This is crowding out the good thing. There's not enough room here. It isn't all going to fit. You know, we live in the generation that to a degree the concept is you can have it all. Well, I got news for you. Your refrigerator's going to run out. You can't have it all. God constituted and made us in such a way that you're going to have to choose between this and this. Every day in your life, there's going to be times during the day when I'm going to have to choose. Am I going to do this or am I going to do this? And, you know, as we go through our days, periodically we're going to have to look around and go, I'm going to have to weed some stuff out. I'm going to have to just look this over and ask if I really need to spend my time doing all these things. Because here's reality. If the Lord's house is lying waste in your life, you're going to find yourself laboring for things that really don't satisfy. Amen. That's what we need to see, and we need to understand that as we look back over our life, and I will tell you, it don't take too much looking around now when we're, 6 and we can't wait to be 16, it seems like the distance is a long ways. When you're 60 and looking at 70, it don't look exactly the same way. If you think about it, we're already 1 month into 2012. It didn't take very long to get here. So have you got a 12th of 2012 stuff done yet? Say, oh no, I've got plenty of things I want to get done before the year's over. You're going to have to start weeding through them and deciding, what am I going to get done in 2012? Because I assure you, next thing you know, it's going to be Thanksgiving. It comes very quickly. We need to see that for us to enjoy life, to find the happiness that is in Jesus Christ, to really find that satisfaction that we can find in Him, we need to start making some choices and saying, you know what? This thing is all right, but it just don't take me where I want to arrive at. So I'm going to have a lot less of this in my life. Maybe it's like the jars of pickles. You go, I really don't think I need 5. Well, 1's probably plenty given the current demand. And that one was debatable. Because there didn't seem to be a lot of demand. Maybe it was because we weren't having cookouts very often. But our life, we need to look at it the same way. This thing can burn up days and days and days. And we just, we go to work, we work our 5 days, we have 2 days off. And I just find things that are amusing and entertaining for the 2 days. Maybe I go to church for a couple of services on Sunday. And I look back after a month and go, well, I don't think I did much of eternal value in the last month? Well, it's time to ask ourselves, is it maybe that the refrigerator's too full and something's going to have to come out? Something's going to have to be removed. Certainly, God was saying to these people, oh, you're working hard. You're working hard. You've sown much. But you're not bringing in a whole lot. You drink, but it's kind of like it doesn't fill you. It doesn't satisfy you. You know, you can drink some things and you'll be thirsty shortly thereafter. Sometimes they tell us that until you get around to drinking some water, that's the way it's going to be. And yet people try all kinds of other things in its place. He says, you clothe you, but there's none warm. And he that works earns wages, but they just flow on through. And I know how it is. You put the money in the bank and pay the bills, and you go, man, I got to look forward to payday again. Because it's taken care of till then. But spiritually, we will have to take hold of some things and say, there's some stuff that's important. And I need to make sure I can fit it in. If we go to Matthew, the 6th chapter, Matthew chapter 6. In Matthew chapter 6, beginning at verse 22, the light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. But if thine eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? No man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. Now he speaks here to the idea of having a single eye. And the idea of a single eye is that I have a focal point in my life, and I am clearly focused on that. Certainly, if you get the whole idea of singleness of eye and such as that, it's kind of like the psalmist wrote in Psalms. He says, this one thing have I desired and will seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord and inquire in His temple. His idea being that I'm going to seek after God above everything else. Amen. Well, as we consider this, he says if your eye's evil, you're going to be full of darkness. If your eye's not working good, you're not going to see so good. You know, if you've got an eye that won't focus, that one you might as well put a patch over it and just go on. Because you're not going to get any benefit out of that. He says, no man can serve two masters. You know, here's an interesting thought. And they've done studies, and it's apparently true. We really can't multitask. You say, oh, no, man, I can do 5 things at one time. I can drive and text and run into the guy in front of me doing it. You know, I've tried that. Probably before most people were doing that. And I can tell you it's a good way to look up and go, whoa me, what's that? I should be stopped already. People think they can multitask, but they've studied it, and what they found out is this. You just don't do any of them as well. You'd be better off to do this thing, and then do that thing, and do that thing, and do that thing. The only sense that people can really multitask And I've done some of this back in my machine fixing days. I would actually talk on 2 telephones at once. Except I wasn't really talking on 2 telephones at once. On this phone, I'd say to this person, go over and do this thing to that machine and come back and tell me what you found. And then I would talk on the other phone and say, you go over and do this on this machine and tell me what you found. I was doing single things at a time. Say, oh, I'm multitasking. I'm talking on 2 phones at once. No, I'm saying do this and do that. And meanwhile, I'm sitting and waiting until it gets done. That's a different picture. But as they study it in reality, we can really only focus on one thing at a time. So you don't know me, man. I can play Angry Birds and type a message at the same time. Well, I wonder what that message says about the Angry Birds. We need to see we can't multitask. Spiritually, in particular, we don't multitask effectively. But I believe if you really get the sense, if you start watching your life, yeah, I can have all kinds of things going and I get distracted, and invariably I'm going to drop one. I'm going to mess it up. I'm going to do the wrong thing. That's what he's saying to us here. He's saying, look, you can't do 2 things at once. You can only do one at a time. He said you can't serve God and you can't serve Mammon at the same time. Now I know in a sense he was addressing maybe the idea that you can't hold on to the world with one hand and hold on to God with the other. But I think what we really need to see is you can't fill your life full of all kinds of trivia and hope to achieve great things. Say, well, you know, I was just going to check on Facebook and see if there was anything new. And yeah, there was. And now I've got to read everybody's thing. This one went to lunch and that one went, across town and that one this. Is that important? I mean, I think about Twitter and, really, I can't picture hardly even wasting the time to spend my day reading 140 character messages. At least you can maybe read them quickly, but how much things of earth-shattering value can you get in a 140 character message? Not much. Oh, I know it keeps people entertained. But I don't want to get to life and look around and go, well, I was greatly entertained, but I never did one thing of real value. All of these things have been dreamed up by people. In some cases, there may be something done there that is of actual value to one's life. I know it's nice to be able to get on Facebook or whatever and share the pictures so you can see the grandkids and such as that when you're spread out and far away. But we need to see. You can spend hours and hours and hours of your life on things that are absolutely of no value. Now, it's kind of like, I want to think about the refrigerator picture there in a sense. All those jars of jelly and pickles and stuff in my refrigerator weren't necessarily bad. They just interfered with the things I needed to achieve right now. And I'm not saying, a man gets on Twitter, he's a wicked, sinful guy or nothing like that. I'm saying, what am I here for? What satisfies me as a person? What is of the greatest value in my life? What's going to give me a life where I can look back and look back with satisfaction of how I have lived it? That's the things of God. And I believe that's what he's saying is to us here. No man can serve two masters. You can become wrapped up with this life, and the things of this life can become your master. The things of this life can drive you. You know, there are many a person that's ended up spending their whole life at the office, so to speak. And all the things they would have liked to have looked back on that they had enjoyed were lost at the office. Most people, when they get to the end of life, don't look back and go, wow, I could have spent more time at the office. Why? Well, because you know what? While it's needful to make a living, it's needful to contribute to that part of society in the way that we should. That's really just not what life's about.
That is right.
I've worked for an outfit that, you know, they stress the career things, and certainly it was nice to be able to get a promotion and a raise at times. But you know, I've also watched those same people I worked with. The company looked around and says, the business has changed and we don't need you no more. And they were devastated because their life had been given to something that could no longer satisfy. That was their life. They had labored, but they had not labored for that which satisfies. You know, you can be the top dog in your industry. And I don't see anything wrong with being good at what you do. But you know, I can look back and say this, I don't think that there's a whole lot to celebrate in being the best at fixing computers. It was interesting to do. It was challenging. But there's things more important than that. There's things I want to look back from the end of my life and be able to look upon that are way more lasting and way more significant than being able to do that. So it says you can't serve two masters. The things of this world will take you and drive you, and they can drive you to the point of distraction. But having given your whole life to them, you will find out you've labored for that which does not satisfy. Say, well, I enjoyed doing this. I enjoy getting outside and doing things. But you know, at the same time, as I get older, I realize some of those things are going to pass. You know, you can look out there and go, man, I like to get out there and till up the dirt and whatnot. There comes a time when I'm not going to be able to till up dirt. Might be some good memories there, and some memories shared that touched other people's lives, but we want us to see that's not what I want my life to be about. That's not where I want it to be spent. I want it to be spent for God. You really think about it, that's the only thing that can bring real satisfaction. It's the only way we can do something that's really lasting, of real value, to be able to look around and know that there's someone I'm going to see in heaven. Because I focused on what God wanted me to focus on. Those are the kinds of things that bring satisfaction. And those things that are in our life that would interfere with doing that, we kind of need to look them over and go, I'm going to have to clean out my life just like I have to clean out my refrigerator. And it might be some things you go, it's kind of hard for me to let go of this. It's not bad. It's just in the way. Now, it's hard for me. I don't want to waste things in the refrigerator. But you know, it's hard for maybe some things you look at and you go, well, I don't know that it's earth-shattering or real value, but there is some pleasure in a sense and some accomplishment in a sense. But you got to ask yourself, is it really worth giving up? Doing that really good thing that God wants me to do, to hold on to this. And I believe that if we look it over, we have to come to the answer that no, it's not. I want to labor for that which satisfies.
True.
I want to labor for that which fills. I want to recognize that I can't multitask. So I want to give my life completely to God, to His purpose, to His cause, that I might be used for the things that He put me here for. Because that's where I believe a person will find themselves most happy. So how is it? Is your life crammed up like our refrigerator? You know, I think back to that, and last time I remember really cleaning it out, Joanna saw the difference, and she put a big note on the door that says, absolutely don't open something new until you check to make sure there's not already one here. It's a great thought. But you know, in our life, maybe we need to put a note there that says, absolutely don't get yourself involved in something else until you're sure it's the thing that satisfies.
Amen. True.